Very much. Well, let's continue to look at some of the ramifications from all of this. Reform, of course, absolutely top of the agenda. Stuart Blythe and Ramon Vega are the CEOs from the company Pitch to Boardroom, a consulting company that helps global businesses operate effectively with a healthy corporate culture. Thanks both of you for coming in. Ramon Vega, first of all, I mean, millions of people around the world remember you from your footballing career, those years at Tottenham Hotspur here in the Premier League. From the footballer's perspective, I mean, amidst all of the mayhem of the last week, we've heard very little from footballers. From the conversations you have been having, what are footballers making of this?
Well, first of all, we are the product of this federation because the footballers are the guys on the pitch. So it's very important for our side. We need to know who's governing us, who's putting the rules in place on the football pitch. So looking back as a footballer now, I love that FIFA, because FIFA is always the dream to be playing in a World Cup as a player. It is a dream, and it's the nicest thing in the world to have. Now all of these is in question because everything is talking about who's bribing that World Cup, who's getting that World Cup.
Yes, and even talks of players, of associations boycotting World Cups. I mean, it's unthinkable, isn't it?
So it's a shame. And we football are actually the product himself. The first thing why the existing of FIFA is there, you know. And FIFA is there to governing the football federation around the globe, putting rules in place, and in a non-profitable organisation to make sure that everything goes smooth. At the moment, we're talking completely different scenario.
Polar opposite. So let's bring it round to that crucial issue of reform, which is your meat and drink in the company that you now run. How do you go about reforming an organisation like this?
Well, Matthew, I think that FIFA is no different to any other organisation, and we should expect the same standards as the CEO of any major corporation. Just because it is a club doesn't mean to say that we shouldn't expect the same standards of proprietary. And I think that this is a great opportunity for FIFA to actually start to do that and put that in place.
How difficult, though, would you anticipate? I mean, you've been watching events. How difficult would you anticipate it to be? Because it is operated like this for decades. I mean, I was reading one commentator who was observing that for all of those FIFA delegates, perhaps who would parrot, yes, we need reform, if you then start talking about taking away the perks and all the things that they naturally think and have become accustomed to, suddenly that appetite may disappear. I mean, it is going to be very, very hard to change things.
It is going to be hard, but I think that there are enough people who have the right attitude within football. There are enough people who have the right attitude who would like to be part of the global game of football, who can actually make that change. I think there is a will now to do it.
And what is the core of what you have to change?
Well, I think we talk now the last 4 or 5 years. Transparency is one of the things we've been talking for years, and now even more. I think the accountability within the organisation, it's very important, because at the moment we're talking just about Sepp Blatter, but we're talking as an organisation, each one has a responsibility within an organisation. And of course, we have to put up a matrix in what's important, what's the duty of FIFA, what they have to do within FIFA, you know. So I think from an executive point of view, I think that has to be changed to start with. Putting a transparency, neutral organisation what actually gets the money in and knows where the money goes within the organisation.
Totally independent body, working
totally
separate
independent body. Absolutely. This is something is very important, because then you don't have that question mark where this money goes. It's a purpose where it goes, the sponsor money, TV rights money, all of that money goes in, but that has to go in a pot where totally independent by the executive or any within the power range.
I mean, I mentioned when I introduced you, I mean, your company is called Pitch to Boardroom. You weave into a lot of your thinking analogies with football in terms of leadership and what has that. How does that apply to this in terms of a template that you would try to change things?
I think that when we work with our clients, it's very much around finding the best people for the best roles. What we're not totally sure about, because of the way in which FIFA is structured, whether that is actually the case.
What do you what is your suspicion about how it operates at FIFA that has to change?
Well, I think that there is a lack of transparency. So you're actually never quite sure whether the right people are doing the right jobs. Starting with transparency and a separation of powers, as Ramon was saying, would be a good step in the right direction.
Sorry, I was mentioned that we also have to look into the structure what the FIFA has been operating now. It's been there for more than 40, 50 years. And I think that structure in today's 21st century is not well and transparent run. From a covenant point of view, and the ethics point of view, and transparency is not 21st century run. That's the one thing has to be changed immediately.
I was interested in reading that you've done work with, obviously, lots of other companies, particularly one financial company in France, about changing the culture. And when you hear people talk about FIFA, they talk about changing the culture. I mean, are there parallels of that sort of work that would apply here?
Absolutely, and I think we live in a very diverse and multicultural society. What we're not totally sure about what goes on in FIFA.
But what did you do with that financial institution? We're not going to name them, but what did you do that applies?
Well, we sat down with the senior directors, and what we did was we worked out what should be the culture of the combined organisation. Where should the power lie? Who should be involved? And how does that relate to the proportion of the workforce that they're managing? It can't be totally one-sided, otherwise you get disengagement.
Just a final thought then, Ramon. Sometimes when organisations are broken, you just have to wind them up, start again, start afresh. Why not do that in a situation like this?
In FIFA, you can't wind it up like that. It's an institution like all the big institutions. It's not a financial problem. It's a transparency. It's a structural problem. So you can't just wind up such an organisation. FIFA is needed within the industry of football. FIFA is very important for all the federation, not just the big ones, the small ones profiting from the FIFA, because they're the ones who haven't got the financial power. So it's very important we get the structure in play and transparency within the FIFA.
So it is fixable. That's interesting.
It is fixable.
Right.
It doesn't take. It will take a while, but it's fixable.
All right, Ramon Vega, Stuart Blythe, thank you so much for coming in to talk to us.